Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Practical Psychic Podcast. It is finally time for another political predictions podcast. Specifically today, we're going to be diving into Trump and all of the predictions that I have in the past and the future around him. If you guys watched some of my past episodes, I kind of saved a bunch of those so that I could just cover them all here in one video and not lump it here and there, because I have a lot of that I want to talk about. Today we're basically going to be going over dreams that I've had. We're going to be going over the astrology. We're going to be going over the election and what I think actually happened there. I'm going to be going over the future, even broadly, past Trump. Even if you're not interested in Trump, at the end, I am going to be giving kind of my updated predictions of where I see the US heading in the next couple of months. Now that more time has passed, essentially. And as more time passed, I've gotten more information about it. Oh, and we're also going to be discussing his health. I don't want to talk about this guy. I hate this guy, but I have been sitting on this podcast for literally since June or July, whenever I put up that first political podcast. And I have just been so darn busy that I have not been able to get to it. And half of my predictions have come true. And it's at the point where it's like, I need to put it out there so that I can say, oh, here's my predictions. And it's getting to a point where it's almost like, okay, all of the predictions that I've made were in the past and they've come true. So it's kind of like, where's the credibility in that? So I'm going to try to post more regularly. I do have a really fun announcement about that in a second, but I just wanted to welcome everyone who is new here. Hello, my name is Lauren. I'm a psychic. I'm a medium. I am a psychic development coach, and I have just recently, as of this year, kind of directed and gotten into political predictions because I felt called. And so this is number 4 in the series. I would highly recommend starting from the beginning, especially if you want to understand everything that I predicted up until this point, especially because I reference them a lot in my podcast as I move forward. I totally get it if you don't want to watch them all and you want to jump in here. I highly recommend checking out my disclaimer blog. Shout out to Melanie who gave me this idea. I used to start each of these episodes by going through my disclaimer. I'm going to trust that you guys are going to go there. I know that the people that won't go there. And there will always be the trolls, but that disclaimer blog is basically an explanation of what I do, how I do it, what I don't do. So for those of you who are inevitably going to skip it, just remember, I can be wrong. I am not God here. I try my best. The future changes. I read the energy in the moment, but as people make decisions and those unfold, things change. You can also check out my more recent YouTube video where I talked about the future. But moving forward, I just want to assume that people have watched the disclaimers in the prior videos, or that they have watched or read my blog posts, so that we can just jump straight into it. Now, although I am new to political podcasts, I am not new to psychic abilities. I've been doing this now for the last 11 years. And I've also been coaching students on their own psychic abilities. So I am not only doing, I am teaching, and I think that both help me be the best rounded psychic that I can be. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but I definitely try to keep my craft honed and practiced, and I practice what I preach. And for those of you who are new here, I try to come at it from a very skeptical, ethical approach, very grounded. There's a lot of people in the political prediction sphere that are fear-mongery, that are way woo-woo about it. I can tell they're bringing their emotions and their wishes of what they would like the future to be, or their anxieties and their fears, and they're letting that influence their readings. And I try my absolute best to give you the most neutral, grounded information that I receive. And my hope for these podcasts, especially this one, is not to stress you out, make you angry, make you afraid, but to give you information so that you can feel a little bit more aware of maybe what could happen and less surprised when it does, and plan for the inevitability of maybe some of it that's coming. But as always, you got to listen with your own discernment. If you listen and something doesn't feel right and spirits in your ear being like, that's off, listen to that. And I forgot to say, this is also going to be a video podcast. I'm trying to make all my political ones video. I'm recording this at nighttime. The lighting is not very good. I don't think I'm going to finish this tonight. I'm going to finish it in the morning. So maybe by the second half of the video, it's going to be a little bit brighter. A few quick announcements. 2 announcements. Then we'll get to it. I have been working my butt off on the Psychic Development Society, and I am so excited to announce that it is up. It is live. That is why I've been so MIA. I know some of you are like desperate for these political podcasts, and I'm so sorry. I essentially wanted to get rid of all of the platforms that I have. I had a Udemy for all of my courses. I had a Patreon for my membership. I had a Facebook group for the people who wanted to like have a free community. I had people everywhere. And I just kind of had this light bulb moment this year during the last Mercury retrograde of like, you know what? I need to bring people together. This is too spread out. People don't realize in my courses that I've got psychic development practice nights. And then people in my Patreon might not even realize that I've got a course over here. And then people in my Facebook group, everyone was just disconnected and spread out. So it was half logistical for me to just kind of pull everyone in one spot. But it's because I have such a huge following, but it's all spread out. I wanted to make sure that all of you had enough peers, enough students to practice with. And it was really difficult to basically get people to hop from platform to platform. And so I used the Mighty Networks platform, which you can't even really tell because it just looks like the Psychic Development Society. But you guys can jump in there now. There's a whole video about it on my channel, all the cool things that you're going to get behind the scenes. There's a predictions vault. There's a place for you to volunteer and offer readings and ask for readings. You can build out your own profile. You can talk to each other. You can meet people in your area. It's really a psychic development hub for you to feel connected and have a safe space to practice. And the first phase was getting all my courses over there, which I'm pretty much done with. And then I moved Patreon over. I moved the Facebook group over. So we are all in one spot. So you guys have probably been seeing emails from me. Maybe not. You are all welcome. Any skill level is welcome. You can jump in at the free, just basic level society, but there's also a membership option. That membership option gets you access to psychic development practice nights. We have guest workshops coming in. Like I know for a fact, this month we're going to have somebody coming in and teaching about timelines, like how to really focus in on timing techniques when it comes to your readings. And then next month we're going to have somebody come in and help you understand your astrological chart to find the more psychic qualities that you might have in your own life. So there's literally guests that come in every month. You're getting more one-on-one time with me. You're getting that practice night. You're also getting group calls. You're getting virtual challenges. There is enough for you to do every single month to practice your abilities, and you're doing it not alone. So just wanted to extend that invitation. You're probably going to see me talk about it a lot more. But it's at least built. That is where I've been the last few months. It's just working my butt off behind the scenes to get it built. And I will say the entire time I have just been itching to get back to this. This is what I'm passionate about right now. This is what I'm excited about. But I just logistically had to do some technical stuff. Did it. For the most part, we're done. The society is open. Everyone is welcome to join. And it's really a place for you to stop doubting your abilities and start finding confidence in them, getting practice, and that one-on-one support and those steps so that you can actually feel more confident in your abilities. So that was my first announcement. Second announcement's a little quicker. I'm probably a little bit preemptively announcing this, but I'm so excited about it, and you guys are probably going to enjoy it the most. And that is, I'm going to be going on to the Soul Driven podcast, which I've been on before, as like a series regular. So Anna Hendricks, she heads up that podcast, and I've been on there before. I've also taught in her membership before as well, and she's also feeling called to speak politics. We both live in Colorado. We like message each other daily. We've become pretty good friends, and I'm really excited that we are going to be getting on more often to basically speak about politics. I don't know how often we're going to do it, but at least it's more often than what I've been doing with this. So you're going to get not only her predictions as well from the Akasha, but also my own predictions mixed in, and hopefully that will keep me more regular than I am here. But don't worry, I am still going to very much so try to make this a regular piece of my content that I create. So yeah, make sure you're following me on socials, join my newsletter so that you can see when those podcasts come out, because it won't be here. So you're going to need to know, where to go. All right, let's do this. I've been wanting to talk about this for ages. I have been wanting to talk about this since last November, and it is currently, as of today, November 12th. It has been a whole entire year since this man has been elected, and I don't think he was elected, as I alluded to in my very first video. We're going to get to that second. First, I want to talk about his health. I want to talk about the things that I picked up before all of us even knew he was having like health issues. Again, a little too late now, but still going to share it. And I'm still going to share some of the things that I'm getting now that I don't believe have happened yet. Because, hey, we all need some hope core, right? What are the odds? My dad texted me right now in this moment about politics. We don't normally talk about it because we don't have the same opinions, but I believe he is coming around. We shall see. He definitely was MAGA before. I don't know about now, but let's start with my dreams. My dreams were the first thing that prompted me to Trump having any sort of health issues. Now, we all know he was an older guy, right? And he was kind of mentally like screws loose. When he took office, he was a lot better than what he is now, to be fair. So the first dream that I had was December 13th of 2024. And you can actually go read all of my dreams in detail on the Psychic Development Society. I made sure to put them all in that predictions vault, so anyone can join. You can go search in there by my name and read these out, because I'm definitely not going to go over all of them. I'm mostly only going over the Trump ones, but in past podcasts, I've also talked about some of the other dreams that I've gotten. I've sat down, or I've laid down and purposely did dream work around. I've purposely sat down and did dream work. So I go to bed, I ask questions, and I do techniques to try to receive answers through my dreams. Dreaming is actually a way that you can increase your psychic abilities literally while you're sleeping. And it's, I feel like, one of the most unused things that we do. And we're going to have a dreaming virtual challenge, definitely one of these months coming up in the society. So yeah, point being, there's a lot of other crazy dreams that I have had. I started covering them in the last podcast. One of them I'm definitely going to come back to in the next episode, because it is scary, some of the tech that I'm seeing come out. Specifically, if you've watched that one with my goggles dream that I had, I just like, I'm getting chills like thinking about it. There's been a couple tech things that have come out that I'm worried that's what that dream was about. But so yeah, December 13th, this was unprompted, which means I didn't go to bed asking for anything. I just went to bed and I had this dream and I woke up and I wrote it down. So this one essentially was like, I was on a cruise ship, and on that cruise ship, Trump was on that cruise ship with me. We were in the Mediterranean or Italy, and there was a bunch of restaurants outside. And I turned around, Trump was on the boat with us, and he collapsed behind me, and I just knew he was dying. And then out of nowhere, Obama appeared and tried to help him, and he was also trying to hide what was happening. And so with dreams, you don't just take them at face value. You have to kind of use interpretation techniques. And so the interpretation, I'm not going to like dive into every single little thing it means, but overall, I felt like this dream was clearly like something is wrong with Trump's health and someone is trying to hide it. And then the Mediterranean setting could have been maybe where he was at that moment, and maybe he was having a health scare at that moment that I got that dream, or it could be that I'm picking up on the future. The Obama part was weird because you have to look at it in dream symbols. And Obama to me is somebody who's trustworthy. He's somebody that like cares about our country. So maybe there's somebody behind the scenes that was like helping him at that time. Again, okay. Fast forward, next dream. This was also unprompted. I did not ask for this. This was April of this year, April 11th. And in this dream, I saw Trump sitting outside the White House. He was sitting like at some sort of desk. He was like signing papers and people were filming him. And, I felt like I was watching it on TV, and he walked off camera. So it's almost like I couldn't see him. And the broadcast was like cut. So like it's over. Okay, cool. Whatever. He signed some papers and he walked off. But then I could see what was happening off camera. It's like I moved beyond the TV and then I was like there. And he had a heart attack. He doubled over and he grabbed his chest. People were trying to help him, but he didn't die. And it wasn't like public either. Like we almost saw it, but we didn't. So again, there's this other element of like it's being hidden. It's being hidden. People don't know. I did have this on the night of a full moon. I don't know which full moon this was. I mean, this was April. Yeah, I don't know. Or here, I got my astrology notebook right in front of me. Libra full moon. So it wasn't like an eclipse or anything. I wonder where Libra is in his chart. Okay. And I did wake up feeling like this was definitely like future related, like it was going to happen in the future. So especially after I had 2 of these dreams unprompted, I'm like, okay, cool. I am going to start paying attention to his health because clearly Spirit is trying to let me know that he wasn't doing good back then. He wasn't doing good December. He wasn't doing good in April, and we just weren't seeing it. And that's true because I don't feel like we, the public, started hearing about it. Gosh, I want to say until summer, maybe? I wish I would have written it down, but I didn't. Okay. And then the third dream that I had, also unprompted, this was on June 13th, 2025. This one was super interesting. I do feel like my bias was influencing it a bit, just because I know at the time and I recorded this that I was just very like caught up in everything that was happening. But in the dream, and I'm just reading from my dream on my phone, I was out drinking with friends in what felt like a conservative college town. I knew it was 11 p.m. Like in the dream, I checked my phone in somebody's house. It was 11 p.m. I set down my phone and then we all walked outside together. And then on our way out, we passed a building where the election votes were being counted. And they were mad. The people, I could like see through the building. They were mad because they were forced to stop or pause the election before they could declare Trump the winner. Which now reading that back makes a lot more sense. And then I kept walking around the building, and I was kind of in this like very huge, large courtyard area with a bunch of buildings, like a university. And across the street was a hospital, and there was like a red light on top of the hospital, and it was like spinning and spinning, and a loud alarm went off, and immediately people were just screaming and running towards the light at this hospital. But it was like good screaming. It was like, oh my God, like it's happening. And people were excited because everyone knew that the president was unwell and he was possibly dying. And I guess I found my phone again because I started filming the crowd with my phone. There were US flags everywhere. I didn't remember that. And then I fell to my knees and kept yelling, "I told you so, I told you so." Now, the best part of this dream was that I started to wake up from this dream. And I was in that zone where I'm kind of like half awake, half asleep, which we're often in that zone, like also before we fall asleep. And that's where a lot of people get a lot of psychic hits. And it's because you're so receptive. Like your monkey mind is so turned off, you know, you are not like trying to control anything. You're asleep, literally. But I was cognizant enough as I was waking up to ask when, because I wanted to know when this was going to happen. And I heard January. This would be January 2026. So I'm asking essentially like, when will he die? And then I heard January. It was definitely Spirit's voice. It was not mine. And then I fully woke up. Now the January I know was not my bias, because I thought he wasn't gonna make it till the end of this year from those prior two dreams, end of 2025, and then my second guess would have been next February, March-ish. So January was not me. I know that was not me. I often talk with like psychic hits. How you know it's psychic is it's sometimes not something you would have thought about before. So I am still holding on to this January. It's now quickly approaching. Astrology doesn't match that. Astrology more says possibly February or next July. I'll come back to that. But that's what my dream said. And overall, the interpretation of that dream, the election part was really interesting because I felt like that was in the past. It felt really out of place. Like, it didn't feel like it was in the same time, even though I was physically walking from one section to another. It was like one of those dreams where it's very vivid, where you like almost remember every single step you took. But it wasn't the same time. It wasn't the same place. But the feeling that I woke up with was this feeling of joy and happiness. People were hugging each other. And so many people were like healing from it. And the fact that I was saying, I told you so, like I wasn't doing that consciously in the dream. Like I was not lucid dreaming. So I was witnessing myself say this. It didn't feel like, it felt like relief. It felt like gratitude. And the more I've thought about this dream, the more I was like, oh, well, I was, at first I thought it was just that I was right about his health. But the election part of that is such a huge part of that dream as well. It's like half of the dream. And so I think it's about both. I think that one day I'll be able to say that basically everything that I'm covering in this podcast, maybe not everything, but the two main themes that I'm covering, which is the election of 2024 and his health, that I'm going to be able to be like, I told you so. And I will say I have been able to say I told you so quite a bit. And especially when it comes to him trying to like push through his third term. I feel like for a lot of us that pay attention, it's like a no duh, that's pretty logical. But for some people that might come as a surprise because they're not paying attention to politics. So those were my three dreams. When I got these dreams, I first felt like he wasn't going to make it past the end of this year. And then when I had that third dream, I was like, okay, maybe January at the absolute latest. Again, my astrology is leaning to next February. I feel like at least next February, he's going to be really unseated in his power. And I think that's going to due to MAGA, and I'll come back to that. So it might not be that he's actually dying, but maybe it's kind of like an ego death. Like he loses power. He loses like what he's trying to do. Oh, and the dream that I got of him actually dying, I had that on a Sagittarius moon. And he was born on a Sagittarius eclipse. The next time we're having any sort of Sagittarius moon is going to be next February. And the reason why I say that is it's been very interesting for astrologers that when people are born and when people pass, they sometimes pass on very similar astrological dates that they were born. Or not dates, but planetary alignments. And so, yeah, could be off on that, but just throwing it out there. Now, if you watched my No Kings podcast, I had covered a couple of readings that I had done about Trump. And those were like card readings. And I had talked about how I thought he was having heart issues. And even in that video, I pull up the heart card. And I was like, okay, yeah, this totally feels like he's having heart problems. Back then, there was absolutely no indication. We were completely in the dark about his health. Since then, we have mostly been told that he has CVI, which is chronic venous insufficiency. A lot of medical professionals, though, think that that's not that's a very tame version of what it is. A lot of people think he has chronic heart failure because they say, I saw one person who's like a vein doctor, and they came online and were like, I know what CVI is, and that what he has is not CVI. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional myself, just quoting what somebody else said. But the vein, the CVI is still like a heart issue, a cardiovascular issue. So when we heard about that, geez, what was that? Again, I didn't write down. I want to say it was, oh yeah, it was July 17th. That was confirmed. So that made me feel like, gosh, I'm getting some of these things right. And I remember sharing it in Patreon at the time, and everyone was just like, oh my gosh, you totally nailed that. I also saved a thread of somebody asking only medical professionals what they think is going on. This person was suspecting clotting issues and maybe that he had a mini stroke. This was back in late August. Vascular disease, bruised hands. I saw a lot of people say that's because of blood thinners, which he's possibly on for heart stents. Heart stents would be a treatment for and preventing heart attack. He's had bruising on his hand. People have taken pictures of that. They think that he's clearly getting like infusions through that hand. Heart failure at the very least. Hand bruising could be from an IV. I've seen a couple people say Lasix, Lasix, or blood thinners. But the edema in his legs, he has swollen legs, is classic heart failure. A lot of people are saying, you know, when that happens, kidneys become an issue, kidneys give out. And a lot of people also have photographed him, and it seems like he's wearing something under his shirt, and also a possible catheter in his pant leg. And the thing under his shirt apparently is called an IVAD, IVAD. I mean, we know this man is not well. Like, it's pretty freaking obvious. He's not standing up at press conferences. He's always sitting down. He's out of breath when he speaks. The mental decline in itself is just 100% obvious. He's not golfing as much as he used to. And there was, I don't know if you all were online at the same time that this happened, but it was the very last week of, it was August, that he just like went MIA. No photos, no nothing. Everyone was like, oh my God, is he dead? And it was just like it was a really fun experience to be online. I took a lot of screenshots during that time of people being like so excited about the possibility that it was going to possibly happen. But he was like MIA for a week, and they tried to like throw out pictures and be like, no, he's golfing. But people were able to verify that they were old golfing pictures, and that like, cause one of them he put up with his like granddaughter, and his granddaughter was actually like in another state, and they were able to prove that. What was really funny is that at that time, Venus was opposite Pluto, and Venus is in his 12th house. Pluto was in his 6th house. So he's having this opposition of like things that you want to stay hidden are actually being exposed. And it's like trying to maintain harmony, Venus, while your body is collapsing, especially when it's like in his 6th house of day-to-day routines. It's like he literally can't get his day-to-day routines done. Like all of his events were canceled. There's no explanation as to why. And the 12th house, things that are hidden, it inevitably like brings up to the surface that which is hidden, and people were not blind anymore to what was going on. We didn't get answers, but, you know, and I think that a lot of us wouldn't be speculating so much if they were just transparent. But the fact alone that they're not being transparent about his health means to me that it's, and this is just logical, that, you know, it's probably something pretty severe. Because if we knew, we probably wouldn't like it, and people would not want him doing what he's doing. And just out of curiosity, I looked up, I was like, when is the next time Venus and Pluto are going to oppose each other? Because with astrology, we might see a reoccurrence of that for him. I was like, well, maybe when could you have another health scare? June 2026. But there's a lot of other transits that could indicate that. Just throwing it out there. June 11th specifically. But like, Venus and Pluto opposition, it really tests the authenticity of what you're trying to do, and it exposes it. So probably whatever happened was he was trying to do what he was doing, but that Venus opposite Pluto was just like, no, you can't keep moving on like this. You're not well. And we all got to see that, sort of. He's also like thinking more about the afterlife too, and he's like posting about that. I will say, like, one piece of advice that I've been holding on to from a hospice nurse is that she said that is a pretty good rule of thumb, not all the time, but you know, they're trained to really monitor and pay attention to any changes in behavior from their clients, because that's their job. They need to, you know, be on top of that. And she said that it's a good rule of thumb that if their physical, mental, emotional, like, status is changing monthly, then they've got months. If it's changing weekly, they've got weeks. If it's, you know, declining daily, then they've got days. So she said that's kind of like a rule of thumb that's within that community, which I thought was interesting. And so I feel like right about now it's kind of a monthly thing. It seemed like it really sped up there over the summer and over the eclipses. And it could still be happening and we're just not aware of it. But yeah, I've never thought he was going to make it to 2026. Again, if I'm to sum this all up, I feel like January, because I'm always going to put priority on my intuitive hits, and then followed by maybe next February or June, July of next year. At the very least, I do not think he's going to make it to 2028, just even logically from what some of the medical professionals out there have said. We do have to keep in mind, though, he has access to some of the best medical professionals out there. So I think that's probably only helping him at this point. Now, a lot of people in the spiritual community say that Trump is hard to pass away because he has an egregore with him, or that people can't curse him or work against him because he has an egregore. This, to me, feels like, I'm going to give you some tough love here if anybody believes in this. I feel like this is similar to psychic attacks in the fact that, like, it's so easy to place blame on something else. And I don't necessarily believe in entities, which, if you have never heard of an egregore, it's like, oh, there's this evil entity that Trump has manifested and, like, manifested himself, and it, like, shields him from being able to do harm. Like, I agree to some extent that a shared intention, if there's enough people out there that have a shared intention to keep him protected, you know, that's one thing that you could have to fight against. But I do feel like there's people that hate him more than like him, so the egregore just doesn't make sense to me. I also just tuned into it intuitively, and I was like, no, that's BS. I think it's a convenient excuse for the folks who are trying to explain away why he has gotten away with so much. But I'll tell you why he's gotten away with so much. It's because he has money. It's because he has power. It's because he has people on his side that want him to stay in power for their own personal reasons that we will get to in the next podcast. We're going to go into the real bad guys behind the scenes. Trump is not really the bad guy. Like, yes, he is a bad guy, but there are people behind the scenes that are worse that I think we really need to be paying attention to, because when Trump passes, things are not just going to get better. Like, I hate to say this, but I've known this from the very first dream that I've had. Anytime I pick up anything, things are not just going to go back to normal when Trump passes. They're going to get worse. And that's because of the power grab that's going to happen. All of these people boosting Trump up have motivations. And the second he is out of their way, they can go and grab power. And literally, I had this thought before, and then when I was listening to the Astrology podcast, like, literally the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the part of this kite formation that I've always been talking about this year, that's going to happen again next February and next July, like, it's just going to keep coming up. And that is always synonymous with huge power grabs of leaders literally dying, or being removed from power, and other people trying to come in and grab power. Now, it's interesting because that's one astrologically historically happened on this transit as well with Russia. So we're going to see something happening there with Russia. Also saving the more global aspects that I want to come back to for the next podcast. But I do believe this is going to happen with Trump. I think they are setting it up for JD to take over. I don't think JD is going to have the same sway, the same power. But everyone is going to try to get their hands in on it. Peter Thiel, I think Turning Point USA is a big, huge one that people need to be watching. The Heritage Foundation. Everyone has their own motivations. Even Curtis Yarvin. And again, if these are new, you can go look them up. If you don't want to wait, I'm going to cover them again in the next podcast, which hopefully I will get to sooner rather than later, hopefully December. But this will not be all back to normal. And I think this is actually what kicks off the intensity and the volatility of the next couple years, is actually maybe Trump passing or stepping down or something. Because when he steps down, I think it's going to be like, we're going to realize, oh, wow, we just had all of these things put into place to basically hand over the power to Palantir and to the Heritage Foundation and to Turning Point USA. And oh crap, what are we going to do about it? Stephen Miller also. But to end this section of Trump's health, I just want to wrap it up with some positive. There's quite a bit of positive in that. But I was watching the Astrology podcast. This is not my knowledge. This is all Chris Brennan. And I thought this was such a fantastic find. And I have saved it and hung on to it since June. And during the No Kings protest, I can't remember exactly the astrology, but essentially, I want to say Regulus, which is an asteroid, which Trump has pretty prominently in his chart. He's got it in a really spot that basically indicates that he's an evil bad guy, from my understanding. Chris Brennan did some digging and basically found that Regulus also means king. And we literally had a no king protest on the day that I think it was I want to say it was Regulus and the sun was conjunct in his chart. Again, don't quote me on this. But it was just a very literal manifestation. On No King's Day, he had something in his chart that literally reflected it. Okay. And so what Chris found is he did some digging on a little bit more information about Regulus, specifically the position that it's in on Trump's chart. And I think it's that he's got Regulus in Leo, and he's a Leo rising, I think is what it says. Because I'll read you this quote. If someone is born when the star on the heart of the lion is rising. So when that star being Regulus, is on the Leo rising. Each of these stars have the temperament of Zeus and Aries. And when one is regulating the hour or rising in the hour of the birth, it makes those who are so born illustrious commanders, those who govern and administer regions, cities, and nations, formidable men, rulers, generals, chief officers, those who are active, independent, speak freely, love quarrels, are practical, intelligent, masculine, victorious, who subdue the enemies, are wealthy with many possessions, generous, ambitious, but who generally do not come to a good end. And I was like, hell to the yes. And that definitely absolutely describes who he is. Sure, he's not the hero we want him to be. It's not necessarily even saying he's a hero. It's just he's a powerful person. But when that Regulus is in, again, whatever that is, I'm worried I've got it wrong. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I did have it memorized at one point. It's just that they typically, in the past, every time that it's happened, and they went over a couple examples on the podcast, those people always did a lot of damage. They killed a lot of people, and they always met a very sticky, unfortunate end. So there's a little nugget of hope from me to you that I listened and I heard, and I was like, everyone else needs to hear this too. Another interesting thing too that I forgot to mention with that Saturn-Neptune conjunction and power grabs, which I discussed in maybe my second podcast, was that the death of Stalin happened on one of these conjunctions. And if you guys have seen the movie The Death of Stalin, it's actually like a hilarious comedy. This is literally what happened. Stalin died in his like office, but his guards were too chicken of him to even go check, and so he laid there for a while before anyone even found him. And he died of like this horrible heart attack. But what happened after Stalin died is that everybody on his team tried to go after, his position. And they all fought internally, foreshadowing. I think this is what's going to happen. And they ultimately all came to a very poor end. Some of them were killed. Some of them were sent to prison. Some of them had to flee. It did not end up going well. Not saying it's going to happen exactly like that, but there is going to be some sort of power grab when he passes. Let's have our block parties. Let's have some fun, shoot off some fireworks. But then the real work starts, unfortunately. Next, let's get to the election. This I have felt so passionately about. My husband was so sick of me when I first started talking about it. And rightfully so. He probably thought I was in denial, and I kind of was at that time. But I alluded to this in the very first episode of I do not think that this man won the election fair and square. I don't. He supposedly won all 7 swing states after 2 years in a row of not getting the popular vote, and now he's got the popular vote when, let's just look at the logic, his rallies were considerably smaller. And so before the election, there were a lot of things that just made me 100% feel like he was not going to get elected. And people even came to me for readings, and I was like, Kamala's going to win. She's going to win. Like, I was just like, so sure of it. And even the astrologers said she was going to win. And I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who like literally correctly predicts every single election even was like for Kamala. And I had a lot of intuitive moments where I stopped and did I feel like I need to like pay attention and memorize this moment. Because Spirit was like telling me to do so. And so like I was watching a lot of TV before the election. So I was watching like the debates. I was watching little clips of Trump talking, and I just happened, and I didn't do that often. I just happened to catch the one night. I want to say, I don't know if it was like a week before, but he was talking to an audience, and he told everybody, just vote, and you won't have to do it again.
And again, Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians.
And I remember like literally where I was standing when that happened in my my living room, and I remember like staring at it and just feeling this push towards this TV, and it was like Spirit being like, pay attention. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, that is kind of weird and fishy, and if he does try to do something, I'm gonna remember that. He also went on the rally and had his ears shot. The more and more I've looked back at that footage, and the more we've dug into who the kid was that shot him, and the fact that he worked for, blanking on it. It's not Rockbridge, but Gray Rock, something Rock, which is like a company associated with the NRA that advertises like guns, and he'd been photographed in the same room as Trump. I don't know if that was AI. It could have been AI. But the kid was a MAGA person, and he even like talked about how much he loved Trump. And he was like one of the best shots at that company, like with a gun. And my guess is that they hired him, or they did something to incentivize him to go up there and graze Trump's ear right at the right time to make a good show. But somebody did die from that. It wasn't just like, I come from the film industry as well. There's things called squibs, and it's how you fake being shot on camera. And they're really cool. I got to play around with them in high school or in college, but they're kind of little packs, explosives, honestly, that you stick underneath your shirt. And they explode, and then the blood leaks out, the fake blood leaks out when you trigger them. It's pretty cool. But the way it happened, I think he legitimately did get shot by somebody who's really good at it and somebody who's maybe on his side. Again, could be wrong. It's just a gut feeling that I had. It was one of those that I was like, that's really convenient. That's really convenient. And I know that I am not the only one that thinks this. We have to think about motivation, and the motivation of being called a martyr and being like, oh my gosh, somebody didn't want me to be president so bad that they shot me. And what it does also is it riles up their base so that if he was to lose, those people would be even more angry because they feel even more fervently that he is supposed to be the rightful person, that God saved him that day is how they play it. I do think a lot of that, I actually think a lot more of those things have been happening recently. Again, Saturn, Neptune, lack of clarity, fog, not like truly being honest about what's happening behind the scenes. I'll discuss more of that in the next podcast, specifically with like Charlie Kirk, and some other things that happened around the eclipses. And then also right before the election, Elon went on to, I think, the Tucker Carlson show, and he talked about how they better win or else they're going to go to jail.
If he loses, man, what? You're fucked, dude.
I'm fucked. If he loses, I'm fucked.
It does seem that way. You can't just be like,
I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Put in that clip. I even remember seeing that before the election and being like, but I just wasn't thinking they would ever go that far. I just only at that point had this, what was it? Clairsentience? It was just, or claircognizance, this knowing of like, that's weird. I should remember that. Come the day of election, I don't know the number on this exactly, but the Election Truth Alliance, which I'll come back to, has since done analysis. There were tons of bomb threats on a lot of the election sites so that people wouldn't go and vote in a lot of the blue cities, counties. And there was also a lot of ballot boxes set on fire. Ballot boxes being mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots are traditionally more blue. People who vote blue tend to utilize the mail-in ballot system. It's just statistically how it works. They were also able to prove after the fact that the calls that they were receiving and the bomb threats were actually from Russia, or from Russia like operatives. So we know that for a fact. And even going further back than that, Trump has always said that the 2020 election was stolen from him. And we've always been like, what? Nobody stole that election. You lost. I actually think what happened was that because of COVID, I actually think that they were trying to rig that one, but they couldn't. I know they didn't have Elon's help, which I do think a lot of this was because of Elon. But I think that because of COVID, a lot more people were at home. A lot more people had to vote mail-in. And because of those mail-in ballots, he just wasn't able to compete / control the numbers. You can't rig mail-in ballots. It's a lot harder. And I'm not going to go into very much detail on this. Just know that the Election Truth Alliance and their YouTube page, they go into pretty heavy analysis on all of this, of like what you can and can't do. And they have election analysis people from all over the world. It's not just US. They're nonpartisan. They don't have a bias. They go and they analyze elections all over the world to determine if they were rigged or not. And they have like a system. But anyway, but again, we have to think of motivation. We have to think about how Trump, you know, was literally about to face jail time, like right before. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the whole case with Jack Smith, but he was this close to like having that hearing, and he kept trying to like push off hearings so that he didn't go to jail. I think his motivation is he didn't want to go to jail. He has a lot of buddies and a lot of people with money who want to accomplish big, powerful things. And so he takes their money, he takes their help to get into the office, and therefore he uses that power and influence to keep himself safe and out of jail and out of trouble. But now he's got to return the favor and, you know, help everybody that helped him get there. Okay, so those are the little hits that I experienced before the election. And then on top of that, there was just my own like logical, observant mind seeing the amount of people that Kamala had. Like, I would watch her YouTube videos of her rallies. She was filling up stadiums. She was on fire. And I genuinely think there were more people excited about her. Come election night, I think they were breaking records in how many people were showing up and showing out. And again, so many astrologers, so many non-astrologer, analytic, politic people were all really believing it was going to be her. So that made the results even more confusing, because that night it happened to be read so quickly and so fast. You'd think that even if the results were a little bit closer, a little bit more true, it would have been neck and neck for a long time. But they freaking called it. They called that he was going to be president before I even went to bed. And I didn't even go to bed that late, is all I remember. All I remember was that my cousin like posted this like red wave post, and I was immediately like, unfriend, block, I'm done. I've made too many excuses for her, no more. And I was like, for a solid 3 weeks, I've said this before, I was just pure rage. I was like a walking fireball. I was so angry. I was so mad. I was in disbelief. But it didn't take me more than 24 hours to start being like, this doesn't feel right. And I did the check. You guys know me. Some of you don't know me, but I do the check of like, I'm not one of those Delulu psychics. I'm not one of those psychics that just wants to hear what she wants to hear. I very much value logic, facts, all of that. And so I was being very cognizant of like, is this me going through, you know, the whatever stages of grief? But the more I thought about it, the more I was remembering all of those times that Trump had been saying things, or Elon had been saying things. And then I was getting online, and I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of other intuitive people that were like, wait, what? This doesn't make sense. Even the guy that did the analysis that he does every year, his name is evading me, I'm sorry. But even he was like, this makes no sense. I've never gotten this wrong. The only way that I could have gotten this wrong is my system inherently is off, or, and he kind of alluded to this, he didn't say it directly, but he said like, or it was like screwed with the election itself. Alan Lichtman, I have it right here, sorry. And again, this is when Hecate started working with me, and she came in like fire. She's right behind me right now. At like literally the statue. And she's been working with me ever since. I feel like she honestly kept me in that fire and kept me from being depressed and giving up. And she forced me to pay attention to my intuition, and the messages that I was getting, so that I could provide it. Again, not saying like I'm some sort of godsend or like I'm gonna change the world with this information, but like she wouldn't let me let it go, because my husband was very much like, you need to accept this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I will not. And I was also part of that 4 a.m. club of people that woke up at 4 a.m. the next day. Now, I just want to clarify this because the 4 a.m. club is just like taking on such a bad rap on TikTok. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't even worry about it. But it's basically this group of people who woke up at 4 a.m. the day after the election and felt like something was off. And so essentially it started out with this kind of like, you felt that, I felt that, whoa, this is weird, we all woke up at the same time, that's interesting. And people were essentially taking it as a sign to therefore validate the information they felt to be true, which was that the election was incorrect. Now, I would not put myself as part of the 4 a.m. club. I was there for a while, but they started to go off the rails and really, just go into Delulu land of like, somebody's going to save us, somebody's going to fix this. And I was just like, I'm not getting that. My intuitive information is now veering off from yours. So I'm not, associating myself with that. And I just want to say, like, two things can happen at once. You can absolutely have a group of people wake up at the same time and know it and talk about it and therefore come together. I do think that happened on purpose. I do think that happened, and I really feel like Hecate was part of it. And probably a lot of other guides and other spirit, making sure that we kept that conversation going and didn't discount it. But I also do think that a lot of people probably wake up every single night in the middle of the night at the same time, and it has absolutely no meaning. It's the meaning you assign to it. So just like a side point here that like not every sign is a sign. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. All right, it is approaching the time that I need to go say goodnight to my kiddos, so I'm going to leave it here tonight. I'm not going anywhere though, because you're just going to see me in half a second and it's going to be morning. So more so just giving you the heads up to the abrupt visual change for those listening / watching. All right, I am back. It is morning. I'm cold, so sorry I'm wearing a sweatshirt, but let's jump back into it. So next I want to cover all of the psychic hits that I sort of received immediately after the election that had me basically questioning if the election was legitimate. And I don't remember the order of how these things went. Some of them might have been right after, some of them might have been a couple weeks. I just kind of wrote them all down way after the fact, so I didn't want to spend all my time trying to figure out the perfect order. I saw a lot of people just talking in general. I saw the Alan Lichtman. I saw people who do data and analysis start to look at things and question things. And one of the videos that I thought was really important was there was a video by, there is a group called Led by Donkeys. I think they're based out of the UK. I could be wrong on that. But they made this incredible video basically showcasing how Elon, even if I'm wrong on him helping Trump with the election, and I'll go over exactly what I think happened at the end. I'm just kind of giving all my little psychic hits first. They made this really long video and projected it outside of a Tesla building. And it was a fantastic video just gathering evidence of how Elon essentially just spent a ton of money and Trump spent a ton of money on social media to basically, promote Trump and drag Kamala. And in that Led by Donkeys video, it really talks about the access to data that Elon has, the money that he has to manipulate it. And it was basically just calling him out and saying, hey, people need to wake up and pay attention to this, because he seriously could have influenced and did actually influence a lot of people's opinions by spreading misinformation and lies all through social media, because he has the ability to do so. So even at the most basic level, if that's all he did, it was still a pretty huge dent. And it's something that I think a lot of the Dems were not prepared for. They needed to run a much bigger campaign online with their their social media, and they needed to be much more prepared for that, and they weren't. Another thing that happened was I saved a poll worker. Like, this video got like no views at all. There was a poll worker, and she like days, and I'm surprised the video hasn't been taken down off TikTok. And she was talking about essentially that she was working at a poll booth. One of their machines went down, and somebody came in to fix it from Starlink, I believe. Which at the time, a lot of us were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why did Starlink have access to these tabulator systems? We had no idea. And I think at the time, let me just double check, but I'm pretty sure that, yeah, just double check because I wanted to make sure I was right. Starlink, just to clarify, Starlink is Elon Musk's satellites. So they're his satellites. He can kind of control what they can and can't do. And it's a way that people can connect to the internet. And so what happened is, prior to the election, in a lot of polling places or election offices that needed it, that they might have had bad connectivity, they utilized Starlink's satellites. And when you go and look online and try to verify this, there's all sorts of articles being like, oh, Elon didn't have access to Starlink, yada, yada, yada. Like he wasn't, in the polling systems. But you can look up the fact that, his, some of those machines were connected to that. Like that's a verifiable fact, but it gets drowned out by all the other like discounting news articles that basically say, oh, the election wasn't rigged by Elon and his machines. But you can find absolute proof that his machines were connected. I don't know how he did it. I do remember that at the very beginning of those days in the 4 a.m. club, there were a lot of like real high-tech data people. And I would always try to understand it, but they would talk about how, you could connect Starlink to those tabulation machines, and maybe not during voting, but before voting, it was so easy to send a signal to change those machines. And then also after, like as it's receiving data, all you had to do was change the code, and then it could change the votes. And there was like this one woman who had it all detailed out exactly. And she was like going viral for it, and then she just disappeared. Not saying like she was killed or anything, but she was definitely silenced on TikTok, and she was just gone. I wish I would have like wrote down her name and who she was, but there was a lot of other people parroting and agreeing with it. And then I saw a video of this poll worker kind of about a week later, and she talked about how in her video that one of the poll stations went down, and somebody from Starlink came in and fixed it. And they fixed it by plugging in a hard drive to the tabulation machine, and it just like magically fixed it. And she said she just remembered, and she explained it the exact same way I did, of like where it was like slow motion. She's looking at it, she feels like she needs to remember this moment because it felt weird and off. And she said she described that USB that they like plugged into the machine, that it was very similar to, like, it looked like it was like an IKEA, or not an IKEA, a Tesla like truck, but it was like the equivalent of a USB. Again, we're just going off of hearsay at this point, but intuitively I just held on to that, and I was like, that's interesting. That's weird. She had a weird feeling about it. Also, what are they doing plugging hard drives into these machines? That's not something that they're normally supposed to do. And if they're doing that, was there other places that they were doing that? And even though I don't think that the machines were affected during the process, you can so easily plug something into those machines ahead of time and basically train it to say, anytime that you get a vote that is blue, out of like 1 out of every 5 of them, turn them red or something like that. It's very simple. And then what was really weird was that Kamala was kind of like participating in this for a while, like weirdly, secretively. Like she was sending out emails for a couple days after the elections with really weird numbers in them. She'd be like, I still need your donation. And the donation is this amount. And the number would be like $2.36. And people were like, what? That's bizarre. Because normally if you get those, and I've been subscribed to those for a long time. Normally they're in like $5, $10, $15, $20 increments. So it was very bizarre that she kept sending out, and she hasn't done it since, obviously, but she kept sending out these emails with these really odd numbers. And so like the Swifties, the Taylor Swifties of the internet were basically like, oh my God, they're Easter eggs. I don't think all of them, like, I think this is where the Blue Lulu crew, the 4 a.m. crew, took it a little too far. But there was one that I thought was incredibly interesting, and that was the 236. And so somebody just went around and dug, and Kamala had just released a book, I want to say maybe a couple months, a year before that. I could be wrong. They just, for shits and giggles, whenever she put out those numbers, they would go to those pages in her book to see if there was anything in there. But on page 236, Kamala literally talks about how she believed that our elections and our voting machines were compromised, and that a lot of her work as a vice president was to prepare for that and to prepare. Like she literally even talks about in the book how people could go to these machines, plug something in, and literally like screw up the results, and how it was a serious issue that needed to be dealt with. And so that gave a lot of people hope, because they were like, that can't be a coincidence. She's throwing out these numbers. We look it up in her book and it explains exactly, it validates exactly what we've been talking about. So for a while, that's all the information we sort of had. It was like, things are fishy. There's like things here that we need to connect the dots with, but there was no outside evidence, no support that we were like right by any means. Some people took that information way too far, and they were trying to read into executive orders and, trying to really like find dates and times of when they thought somebody was going to save them. And I was in that crew for just a bit. But after disappointment after disappointment, I realized, okay, they're not going to fight this. I just need to let go of that hope. And I think I finally let go of it on Inauguration Day, because I was so hopeful that something was going to be fixed on Inauguration Day, or that there was going to be some like major drama moment of like, I object and you're not allowed to be president. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I was getting a little delusional about it as well. And so I kind of like stepped back. And when I say delusional about it, I mean in the hope. I still definitely knew how to receive psychic hits. What was psychic, what was mine. I knew the difference. Then came all of the things that Trump and Elon started saying, which, before that was like, I just have a hunch. We all just have a hunch. And then he started fucking saying it. Like let's see, I think a couple days later, Elon was he wasn't with Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan put up a podcast, and he talked about how Elon had access to the results 4 hours before everyone else.
Apparently, Elon created an app, and he knew who won 4 hours before the results. So as the results were coming in, 4 hours before they called it, Dana White told me Elon was like, I'm leaving. It's over. Donald won. He just fucking...
I'm so surprised people just sloughed this off. I don't think a lot of people sloughed it off, but yeah, he just fucking said that. Like, how would Elon, somebody who at that time was not working with the government, how would he have known the results before the rest of us? Like, how? And again, that's why a lot of us think it was Elon and possibly Starlink. Or maybe if it's not Starlink, he did something to those machines ahead of time or after the fact. I don't know how. I'm not a tech person. to basically like screw with the results. And then we've got Trump, who's just blabbing his mouth and legitimately says it out loud. He says without Elon's help, he wouldn't have won the election. Dems would have won. There were several times on camera where he says, if the election had not been rigged, we rigged the election. I'm just going to show it all to you here.
Interestingly, I had none of them had I not had a rigged election. Had the election not been rigged, I would have been out of here. I would have been gone. The radical left would have said, we got rid of him finally. And he knows those computers better than anybody, all those computers, those vote counting computers. And we ended up winning Pennsylvania like in a landslide, so it was pretty good.
So when Trump starts saying it out loud, it's kind of like, all right, this dude is slipping up. He's having a Freudian slip. Like, he's saying what they did, on top of all the intuitive hits that I've been getting. And then comes the actual analysis, which I think has the strongest like weight to it out of all of this. And this is where the Election Truth Alliance comes in. I would highly recommend checking out their YouTube page. They are, again, a group of people who are nonpartisan. They don't pick sides. They're not left or right, not even really central. Their whole thing is like, we want free and fair elections. And so we are going to develop a group that studies these elections to make sure that they are fair. And they bring in professors that literally like are the top of their industry, the top of their profession, I guess, in the subjects. And then they bring in people from outside of the states, the best professionals in the world and they have systems in place of different ways that they tell if an election is fair or if it's not. And they apply this everywhere. These are people that have worked, on, where Russia has hacked elections, and they've been able to verify if that happened or if it didn't. That's how we literally know that Russia interfered with Moldova's elections, Romania's elections, the EU, that like all of these places they've been screwing with the last couple of years. And we know for a fact that they also screwed with our elections in 2020, 2016. Gosh, I feel like I should have done a little bit better about writing down my dates here. But that was like a well-known fact. They didn't do it enough to make a big enough dent back then, but they were definitely trying. And I do think that part of this is not only Elon. I do think Trump had Russia's help as well. Him and Putin at the time were buddy-buddy. I don't think so much anymore. But even Russia, like Putin, a week after the election, said what did he say? Something to the effect of we helped Trump get this presidency and now he owes us. I was just like, that's an interesting, odd thing to say. It was kind of like a public threat of hey, if you don't pay up on whatever they agreed on, we're going to spill the beans. And I think it got Trump's attention because we never heard about it again. The group SMART was also looking into this, but essentially both of them started gathering data from the election. And you can't actually look at the data of the actual ballots. You can only look at what's been reported by the states. So everybody votes. The states have to certify that and publish it publicly to let you know, here's exactly how many votes we got here, exactly how many votes we got there. And all of that information is accessible. And so that's the information that they're studying. So they can't verify it with absolute certainty unless they actually have the ballots in hand. But their goal essentially is to look at the data and see if there's enough of a question mark there to then be able to take it to a court and say, hey, something seems fishy. We want you to force them to hand us over the ballots so we can do a recount. And I will just tell you, watching some of their videos, they started in, I want to say Rockland County, New York, which was one of the places that had really fishy numbers, but they have since looked at North Carolina. They've looked at so many states, Pennsylvania, and they've got all sorts of teams working on it, and they are opening up active lawsuits. This isn't just fluff. There are active lawsuits going on that have not gotten very far at this point in November of the following year, because it takes time. It takes time to research, to raise the funds, to pay people to look at all of the research, and then it takes time to raise the funds to pay an attorney to go to court, and then court is a long ass process in itself. So some of these are just starting. Some of them are still in the research phase. But these companies, because they are not companies, these nonprofits have gotten a lot of grassroots support because of people like me spreading the word, and a lot of people believing that something fishy happened. And so they raised like $100,000 over like a week, to basically try to fund, I can't remember if it was Rockland County. It was one of the ones that they were trying to get going. It was just incredible that so many people were feeling so correct about this that they were able to put money where their mouth was. And it was like total like $2, $5 donations that ended up totaling to 100,000 in a week. It was crazy. Just to give you like a really brief explanation, what they started looking at was, okay, they looked at a lot of things. But one of those was like, okay, let's look at the down ballots, which the down ballots are, you got the presidential, race and who you're voting for president. But then there's always other things on that ballot to vote for. So like, I can't remember what it was at this time. I don't know if it was like senators or like who's going to be, the person who's going to be the university head or something. Those are like the down ballot races. And a lot of times people skip the down ballots, and just vote for the president because they don't do the research. It's too overwhelming. And so a lot of times those are left blank. And usually if you do vote down ballot, it matches the president that you vote for. So if you vote for a red president, the down ballot tends to be red also. Or if you vote for a blue president, the down ballot tends to be blue as well. And so what they started to realize, especially in Rockland County, New York, was that there were people that voted blue on their down ballot, but that left the president blank in the data. Again, not the physical ballots because they don't have access to those. And so it was very odd that we have in this whole county absolutely 0 votes for Kamala, but they would win blue in all of their down ballot races. And it's like, that's weird. And they do a lot of research. They don't just put in like a little tiny chunk. They look at a lot of cities, a lot of counties, again, and they approach it in a lot of different ways. They use like this Russian like tail diagram that they use, which is pretty cool. And that's to extra make sure that things are correct, because there's always going to be anomalies in voting and statistics. There's going to be outliers. But what you want to do is look for enough outliers and enough of an irregularity that would indicate that something got messed with. And in those videos, they show you, here's what Russia looks like. We know Russia rigs their elections. This is what that data looks like when that happens. And here's like a normal one. And then they go into all of our 2024 data, not all of it, but some of the states, and it looks exactly like those Russia ones. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why is no one doing anything about this? But they're at least trying. And these poor folks have tried to get onto so many news stations, and I feel it's interesting that so many of them have just automatically turned them down. That's not normal. That's really not normal. Normally when something like that happens, news stations like eat it up because they want to create the drama, and they can't even get the Dems to talk about it. It's like, what? That's bizarre. And then I just think about like getting in Trump's head, because he was constantly talking about how much they won by, how he was always bragging about the numbers, tweeting about the numbers. And for many, many months, even up until this summer, it was always this, I won by so much. And he's always also constantly focused on like people paying their the Democrats like paying protesters, paying people to show up to rallies, which is just like flat out not true. It's like, I wish I would have been paid to show up, but I definitely wasn't. Like, we know he actually pays people to fill his seats. Like, when they had on the No King's Day, they also had that big military parade. They were able to find on Craigslist that they were literally paying people to come sit in those stands so that it looked like it was full. They still didn't have it, like, anybody there. It was still pretty darn empty. And like, that dude's obsessed with it. Like, AI creates like crowds of people, and like, we know that it's been like caught. But yeah, point here being like, if you're always bragging about something and always talking about how, like, I kind of again feel like it's a Freudian slip a lot of times, what he says and does. And I actually feel like he's insecure about it, and he knows that he did those things. Like, I feel like he knows that he rigged it. He knows that, like, the fact that he was always tweeting about how much they won by, and it seemed to be such a focus. He would talk about it in tweets that it didn't even really make sense. If you really re-look at those tweets and insert, okay, what if he did do this? What if he did rig something and he's nervous about it? He's nervous about getting caught, or he's insecure about that he couldn't win correctly or something. Because I do think that man has a lot of ego. You can read those and it makes a lot more sense. It's coming from a very insecure place. It's coming from a place of like being worried that somebody's going to find out. And so, I feel like a lot of people's, like, the way that they handle that is to be more loud about it, which I feel like is not the best, like, tactic. But it was really interesting too, because on Inauguration Day, Kamala was walking by the camera. She's walking in the hallway to go to the room to his inauguration. And she, like, mouthed the words, "Justice is coming," is what a lot of people interpret it as. I feel like, even if we're wrong on the wording, she's very clearly trying to say something in that video, because she's very stiff. She's very, like, aware that there's a camera there. And then as soon as she gets close enough, she very clearly tries to say something. And I don't think she's talking to Joe, because she was walking with Joe. She was sending signals. And then later she went on, like, very recently, she went on Colbert for, like, the very first time. And I do think overall what she was trying to do is, I think she was trying to let us know that something was up. I don't think she was going to do anything about it, like a lot of people were hoping for, including myself. I think her goal was to stoke the fire as subtly as she could and help people get that information so that they would get pissed and there would be an uproar about it. And I think it failed, honestly, because when she went on to Colbert, she talked about how she wasn't prepared for the capitulation. She wasn't prepared for the American people to just to bend over and take it, literally. And so I think that's where she was disappointed, was, she was probably aware that this was going to happen. I really do think she knew it was going to. Like, you can see it in her acceptance speech, like the way that she held herself and she talked. It was very much like, you think you got me, but I know better. I know I won, and I know what you did. And it's just like a matter of time before somebody does something about it. I just don't think that was her, because I think if it's her, when you really think about it, that other side would just go nuts. They would lose their shit if the other presidential candidate would, like, try to fight that. It can't be her. It has to be somebody else. I do think she was kind of in some ways like a sacrificial, like, lamb, unfortunately. But that's like one of the biggest like counter arguments to this is like, well, if that happened, why didn't they do anything about it? And I truly think that the answer has a couple different like things to it, but I think the main one is that if she would have fought it, his fan base would have lost it, because they had excuse me, cut that out, because they had lost the 2020 election and they had an insurrection at the Capitol. Like, these people were not going to take a loss easily, and their leader was telling everybody that the elections were rigged and news was fake, literally again projecting what they were themselves going to do, because it's a lot easier to be like, hey, if we're going to rig this, let's blame the other side for doing it so that when they try to blame us, they have less credibility. I mean, a very tiny piece of me still holds on to something, because on Inauguration Day, astrologically, there's something in that chart that indicates that there's something hidden under the surface. And I don't know, that could just be the nefarious deeds of whatever Trump is doing, or it could be something good that combats and fights this. And then more recently, when Elon and Trump had their falling out and they started bickering online, Elon tweeted out something to the effect of like, if it weren't for him, Trump wouldn't have like become president, which you can read that as like, okay, well, maybe it's because of all of the influence that he gave him on social media. That's like not technically super illegal, but he literally said that the Dems would have had the House, and he gave a very specific number, 59 to 41. How would Elon have known, unless he's just pulling numbers out his ass, like, how would he have known a random number of, like, Dems winning unless he had access to that data and then altered it? Again, going back to how quickly they had those results, it doesn't add up. So again, there's a lot of logical explanations to a lot of this, but just intuitively, gut feeling, never trusted it. And even since, Trump cannot fill stadiums, he cannot fill those rallies, and it just does not make sense. How is it that 2 years in a row he lost the popular vote and now he wins all of it, especially after tanking our economy after COVID? After doing all of the awful things he did in his first presidency and the insurrection? Like, no, he did not win. There's things that happen constantly to this day that every time I see it, I'm talking to my husband. I'm like, see? And my husband still rolls his eyes at me, and I just keep telling him, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till I can prove you right. I think that this really happened. But to sum it up, I really feel like with the help of Russia, with the help of Elon, somehow they were able to manipulate those votes as they were coming in, before they were coming in, after they were coming in, something. And because of that, that's how he got in. Statistically, there's things that don't add up. Logically, the crowd sizes, the amount of support that she had, and then, just intuitively, it just does not make sense to me. And I very much did, again, I've got my husband over here keeping me grounded, who's, will definitely play the devil's advocate more than I like him to. And will tell me, well, they were running podcasts. They were doing a lot of things, and they got a lot of a fan base. And that's the thing, is I think people are basing it off of the numbers they gave us. And I think those numbers are incorrect. I think they were altered. And Election Truth Alliance is just further proving that every single day. Now, is something going to be done about it? No, I don't think so. There's a lot of that Blue Lulu crew, 4am crew, which I just want to say, sorry, like, I'm not judging anybody for being a part of it. When I say this, I'm thinking of the leaders of the Blue Lulu crew and the 4am club, and it's the so-called psychics. Not all of them are psychics. A lot of them are just normal, average people. But I do think that they do a disservice to their community, because they try to hold them up and hold up their hope, because that's what they want. But is that the reality of what's going to happen? No. But they notice that every time they make a post or a video that's more hopeful, and they're like, we're going to win this, like, it's going to be exposed tomorrow, it blows up. And so they're going to keep doing that so that they can keep blowing up, because the dopamine and the audience and getting more people to follow you. And so I think that a lot of those creators are doing it with not the best intention. And well, the intention being like delusion in the clouds of hoping for the best. I don't think anyone is going to come save us. I don't think there's going to be like oh, hey, Trump, you are not the president, and so now you got to leave. We're kicking you out. He's going to be there to stay. Because when you think about it, you don't want to be like, oh yeah, we're America and our elections were rigged. It just makes us look bad. I think it's always going to be something, it makes us look weak. Like, it's going to be something that maybe a lot of us know, maybe gets verified years from now. And it'll be too late. And maybe there will be something done about it moving forward. But he's there to stay. If anything, it's going to be these Epstein files that take him down. But all right, so next I want to move into my kind of like updated timeline that I've just been really like picking up on. I'm getting a little toasty, so I'm going to take off my sweatshirt. Now, in my last podcast, I kind of went over the timeline as I saw it then. And it's been a few months, since I've looked into that, because it was definitely like before the last eclipses in September. And I do want to come back and talk about those eclipses, because there are some huge things that happen on those eclipses that are going to be coming back next eclipse cycle in February and March that I'm not excited about. So let me get into that now. So right around the next time we have an eclipse, we also have that kite formation coming back. At least pieces of it, not the whole of it. But specifically the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is coming back into its spot. And so that's going to be February of 2026. And it's interesting because what happened with the kite formation is when Mars and Libra opposed Saturn and Neptune, we started to see even more happen with the Epstein files. So around February, we're getting both. We're getting like both of the astrological kite happening as well as the eclipse. Both have huge occurrences with the Epstein files. Again, I know I haven't really broken down the last eclipse, so definitely come back and watch the next one for this. And what happened? Yeah, because on the last, I'll just say it really fast, with specifically Epstein, on the last eclipse, that's when the survivors came and spoke out, and like they were trying to like blast the jets near them so that they couldn't be heard. That's when Epstein's birthday book came out, which was pretty huge because there was letters from Trump in that birthday book. Also, Trump visited the UK. And during that September eclipse, we got real shaky ground with Trump's base. They are already fracturing so much, which is great news, but also not great news. Great news in the sense that MAGA is like falling apart. And I've heard from people that, Democrats or just central people, like whatever they are, that go and they actively watch all of the right-leaning, like extreme right-leaning and just normal right-leaning, like podcasts and videos just to see what's going on, which I think everyone should do. And I should be doing myself, but I don't have the time or patience to deal with that. But something further is definitely going to be happening around Epstein in like February, just purely astrologically. And, a couple times on, I think it was my No Kings podcast. Again, that one's a hidden one. I don't know if I mentioned that. So you have to go on to the Psychic Development Society and find the link for it. I didn't publish it as a full, like, official podcast. Because it was still in a time period where I was not ready to talk about politics, but I still sat down and recorded it anyway. But I kept picking up on, like, literally when I did Lenormand, and also just, like, readings. A lot of times it would come through, like, cards. of like documents. Documents were going to be the exposure of Trump and what leads to his downfall. And I was always like, well, there's so many documents. He's in part of so many lawsuits. Like I had no idea which one it could have been. But I'm thinking now more and more that it's going to be Epstein that brings his base down. Because every time that this Epstein thing happens, his base fractures. And so I really am predicting that February, March, his base is going to fracture pretty severely, to the point where he's losing that control over them and that power over them, and he's going to do something drastic. And like, on a side note, I remember back when Epstein died, like a supposed suicide, I just remember thinking intuitively, because this was a couple years ago now, but I just remember like intuitively being like, he didn't kill himself, like somebody killed him. And I didn't know about his and Trump's relationship super well back then. I can't remember if I had watched the documentary on him before or after that, but I just remember having that intuitive hit of like, somebody put a hit out on that man. Like it was no suicide. And now I'm actually wondering if it could have been Trump. Like, I don't necessarily think it was like him in there physically. But I never had that thought before. But I wonder if that is why Trump is so paranoid about these documents. They are doing everything they can to cover this up. And like, we know the majority of it from the survivors themselves, but I keep trying to think about like, what about them having this information revealed is so bad for Trump? Like, he's already president. What does it matter? I'm not saying it's like that I think he definitely like murdered someone by any means. Like, maybe I think there's a lot of other incriminating things in those documents that just don't look good for him. But I'm just wondering about like if his passing is somehow going to be like linked to Epstein, but maybe not. I more just wanted to share that I picked up that hit way back then, and I always thought somebody did that, and then more recently I've been like, I wonder if it was Trump, you know? I did remember thinking it had to have been a politician back then. So yeah, point being, in next February, March, expect not only something huge with the Epstein files, like literally as of today, yesterday, the government just opened back up, and we now have the ability to finally swear in Adelita Gravalha, who was supposed to be somebody that could have flipped that vote weeks ago, and they just kept like putting it off. Now we have enough votes to do that. Trump currently is frantically calling people, trying to get them not to vote for the release of those documents, but the documents are even still being combed through now, and things are being released about it. Specifically, what just happened last night or yesterday was they found emails from Epstein saying that Trump knew about everything that was happening. And you know, I want to say too that I used to follow an astrologer. Her name was Astrologer Lori. A lot of people probably know her. I found her predictions to be correct sometimes, but also just they didn't feel right to me sometimes. She uses like an older system of astrology, and I just stopped like following her for a while, but I still have it in the back of my mind that she said November was going to be when we hear about potentially anything to do with the election. She really believes that the election was interfered with as well, and she was able to kind of see that in some of the charts. She's kind of on the same boat as me of she doesn't think anybody's going to do anything about it, but we might hear something in November. I don't agree with that intuitively, but I just feel like I need to throw it in here just in case it does happen. Oh, and I want to say too that sometimes I wonder, and this is where my bias comes in, so I can't really get a good read on this, if Epstein was actually smuggled out and not actually dead. Like he was moved somewhere, which I think is 100% possible. Because since the Epstein files have been leaked, they have shown the footage that night of him dying, or not him literally dying, but like the night that he died, there's security camera footage of the prison. And at fucking midnight, the recording like cuts, and like I think it's like a minute or 2 minutes just gets skipped. Just gone. Footage gone. And they release this to the public as if like people wouldn't notice. I was like so there is a high possibility too that he could have escaped and gotten out. Very easy to create body doubles. All they gave us was like a profile picture. I don't know. The thing about this fucking administration is they have me second guessing everything and thinking everything is a conspiracy theory. And I'm not that kind of person, because they're so not transparent. But I do know that what a lot of the astrology like that's going on right now is that there is a lot of lack of transparency. There is a lot of delusion. There is a lot of clarity or lack of clarity on purpose. And so sometimes it's hard for me to know, am I feeding into my own delusions, or am I actually seeing past their delusions that they're trying to create to distract other people? I do believe something else is going to happen around February with Trump trying to take a third term. He's literally already talked about it so many times. Every single eclipse that's happened, he talks about it. And more recently, Steve Bannon got on an interview and was like, he will get a third term. There are things in place. We are doing these things for him to get a third term. This isn't even at this point psychic. It's it was psychic back then, and I knew this, and now it's just getting confirmed and confirmed. I think a lot of people aren't paying attention, so it probably for some people might be like, oh my gosh, you're psychic. But I mean, yeah, back then, but now it's just fact. And we've further had confirmation of that this last month, because there was a document that was leaked of a meeting back in February or March of 2025, where they literally, the third term project got together and they were figuring out ways to help him have a third term. And I remember back in February and March, somebody snapped a photo of the banner of that meeting, and I shared it, and I was like, people wake up. Only just recently did we see a memo agenda for that meeting. And with Trump's base, this is such a Neptune in Pisces thing. It's Neptune in Pisces is very cult-like energy. It's very conspiracy theories. It's victimhood. And that is MAGA. That is, everything is happening to me and everyone is out to get me. And it's mass delusion in a more negative sense, Neptune in Pisces. In a more, beautiful, awesome sense, it's mass spirituality and compassion for each other, which over the last 7 years, there's definitely been that within the spiritual community. Again, I've mentioned it before. It's everyone's a psychic now. Everyone's an astrologer. But literally around 2011 is when MAGA started kind of cropping up, apparently. But now, in February, Neptune is moving back into Aries. So it's no longer going to be that delusion around religion and conspiracy theories and all of that. It's going to be now about fighting back. And so I really see a lot of outcomes lately with this of some of Trump's base is going to fracture and they're going to come back to the right side of things. A lot of them are going to misplace everything. They're going to start fighting and not realize that they're actually fighting the wrong people. So they're going to start taking it out. They're going to be mad at Trump and not trust him anymore, but they're still going to blame the left and they're going to go after them. And then there's going to be the extremists of his group and his party that start fighting as well. I don't think that's going to happen in February, but I think we're going to see some sort of incident, some sort of something, the start of something that causes it next summer. I'll get back to next summer. But just know that in a lot of ways, that MAGA cycle kind of ends in February, literally, according to astrology. So it's what's going to happen? And that's where I'm like, the Epstein files. It's got to be because of that reoccurrence. And the third term. I think he's going to lose people when he comes out and he's like, we're going to do it. And he might not fully say he's going to do it. That might be maybe a more next summer's thing. But there's going to be some further step that direction. Because even as of recently, he's now saying, I'm not going to rule out a third term. Like, I do believe this is all very, very calculated. Like, a lot of people think Trump is an idiot, and he might be the idiot. But there are people behind the behind the scenes. Oh my God. Behind the scenes, pulling the strings. And they know exactly what they're doing. They are tit for tat, literally going down the authoritarian playbook like check marks, and they are doing every single thing to make this happen. And a lot of people are just living in oblivion right now, and I don't know how they're able to do that. And so here's what he's doing is, first, he's normalizing the idea of dictatorship. He has made it normal to where you are now starting to see people be like, no, I want that. It's okay. It's cool. And so next, I think what we're going to see is him start to suggest that democracy doesn't work, that the system is failing, and it'll be a lot better if he just kind of takes over. And then after that, he's going to take baby steps, which he already technically has been, by gutting a lot of these programs, removing people, putting other people in place. Like, he's been doing so many things that a lot of people just are not paying attention to. That he's making those baby steps already to see how the public will react. And that's literally how they're doing it. And there's actually, if you're like, I don't know about that, there's a website called the Trump Action Tracker. It's literally a website that tracks everything that Trump does. That's authoritarian in nature, and it kind of breaks it down into different pieces. So if you need that to go make an argument to your friends or family, take it. The Trump Action Tracker. And you can see on that website, like, how much, maybe I can just put it up. Let's look at it together. I forget that I can share my screen in my podcast. Okay, so this is like a UK-based group. So total action since he's taken office. And you can see these little graphs here, how, it's just purely like they write down everything that happens. And so you can see how some of it doesn't actually like progress anything. Like some of it, like this one, corruption and enrichment, that one's pretty steady. Hollowing state, weakening federal institutions. There's like a bar graph for those who are not watching. And it's pretty like stable. Attacking education, attacking science. But look at recently how some of these graphs are getting taller. Suppressing dissent, controlling information, undermining democracy, nationalism, which is anti-immigrant, and militarized nationalism, foreign policy, weakening civil rights has kind of been on the down. And then you go down here, actions recorded each month that are authoritarian in nature. Look at this. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There's more and more that he does. This is literally Project 2025, you guys. Like, they told us this would happen. People were screaming about it. I do think that we need to stop attacking the right, because I think the right is a lot smaller. Again, because, let me just come back to I think that a lot of people are attacking, well, it's your guys' fault that we're all in this. It's your guys' fault. That's exactly what they want. They want us to fight each other and not realize that actually they rigged it. And the majority of us actually didn't want him there. And it's not that, I really, really think that the MAGAs are such a small group, but we've been led to believe that they are actually a lot bigger than they are, and they are not. So I really do think we need to stop saying things like, well, not stop saying things, because there's definitely people who need to wake up, but I think we need to realize that attacking each other is not going to work, and it's that we need to be going after the people that actually caused this. It wasn't I really don't believe it was the Republicans that put him in office. I don't. I think it was him that did it. I think the majority of us wanted Kamala. That's something I forgot to mention. Like, have any of you been to these rallies since they've happened? They are huge. Like, I went to, or I missed the last one because we had a bunch of stuff going on that day. We had a bunch of events and like I had a party and stuff, but in October, the No King's Day 2.0, and I was driving home through a small suburb of Denver, Littleton, and like we have Denver, we have our huge protest downtown, and that's usually where I go. I probably shouldn't be saying that. ICE is watching everything now, but fuck you, ICE. Fuck you. I'll talk a little bit more about the surveillance and the terrifying things that are happening there in the next podcast, but even in Littleton, there was hundreds of people out on that street protesting in just a tiny little cross section of like one of our highways. And it's like, there's no way. Every time I tell my husband, there's no way he won. I don't believe it. Look at all these people here. And he's always like, well, maybe they just voted for Democrats. Or maybe these are just the Democrats that are angry. And I was like, well, maybe. Okay, got that. Cut that out. His playbook right now is to distract us and also take resources away. You know, he's gutting everything right now. The government shutdown took away food from people. He's gonna, you know, even though the Dems agreed to it, our healthcare is about to fucking skyrocket, whether or not you are on free healthcare or not free healthcare. The way that it works is that a lot of that Medicare and Medicaid, which is Obamacare, a lot of that pays hotels to stay in business. A lot of that money also goes to helping keep the costs low of even private insurance companies. And so what's going to happen is that even your private insurance company is going to raise the price to make up for the fact that, you know, hospitals can now not pay for people who don't have insurance. Essentially, Medicaid covers a lot of that. The people who show up to the hospitals and need an emergency service but can't pay. That's what Medicaid also covers. And so now, because Medicaid is not going to cover that because of the atrocious bill that they just signed, and also the big beautiful bill, like essentially starting in 2026, and it might even roll out further too, these hospitals are now not going to be able to pay that cost from the government, so they're going to turn around and put it on these private insurance companies. And who are those private insurance companies going to put it on? They're going to put it back on you. They're not going to pay for that. And so all of our insurances are going to go up. He's trying to make us sick. He's trying to make us hungry. He's trying to hurt and distract us so that we get pissed. He is doing everything within his power, and just intuitively, this is everything that I'm saying here is pretty much a prediction, unless I say otherwise. Like, he is trying to make us mad so that he can declare martial law. And I've always had that hunch, but I haven't said it because I haven't had any logic to back up the martial law point. But they've literally now said, JD and Trump, that they're not going to like rule it out, and they might have to do that. They might have to enact the insurrection clause. And why would he do that? Why would he declare martial law? So that he has control over the military, that people can't go out and do certain things. Also under martial law, you can't have elections. That's one angle. When you also go to war, you know, you can do some of these things similarly. I think he's trying to start a war with Venezuela. Probably a lot of other people. We'll get to that in the next podcast. But this man has no intention of leaving. He has no intention of leaving, and I cannot believe the amount of grown adults that still tell me to this day that it's just a 4-year thing. They're living with their heads in the sand, and I'm just waiting for them to catch up. So let's go back to the voting thing. Even if I'm wrong about the past, even if I'm wrong about him fucking with the elections last time, he is going to again. Hard stop. 2028, expect those numbers to be fucked with. Like, just expect it. I'm going into it. I'm going to still vote. I'm still going to vote. But I fully believe, knowing the astrology, that that's going to cause like a huge uproar because people are going to be so pissed for so long. And then all of a sudden, what? Our elections are still voting red? What? And if you don't believe me, here's all the steps that he has taken since being in office to screw with the elections. On day one, he formed the Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship group. He made an executive order. What it did is it put a pause on any sort of election security monitoring. No one is monitoring the elections. In January of 2025, the DOJ withdraws its involvement from pro-voter cases. Later in January, it dismissed the voter purge case in Virginia. In February, they pushed employees out of the CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Like, come on. February of this year, they swore in a election denier as the Attorney General. In February, the same group, CISA, freezed all election security activities. They also tried to fire people in that CISA again, but the judge later said you can't do that. Geez, some of these I'm just now realizing. Later in February, reported hacker joins CISA, Edward Korestein, somebody who's supposed to safeguard our cybersecurity of our national election system. He was previously fired. February 21st, election denier is sworn in as an FBI director. I mean, that's just kind of like... And then in March, somebody that here in Colorado we put in jail, what was her name? Tina Peters. She was an election clerk that got caught literally trying to rig our elections here in Colorado. They basically eventually got her out of jail. I believe. Prison, sorry. In March, they made voter ID laws that made it harder for people to vote. March 10th, they cut $10 million in funding for people supporting election security work. Then March 14th, he threatened 2020 election officials with prosecution. Trump did. Like, there's so many of these where he's going after the law firms that basically tried to fight any of this, or that could potentially fight it. Another election denier appointed at the DHS. September of this year, the DOJ reportedly requests access to Missouri's voting equipment. And now, as of mid-September, I had no idea this was happening because that's right in the eclipses. Great. The DOJ started filing lawsuits against several states because they wouldn't give them their voter registration lists. And then as of about a month ago, on October 9th, the Dominion voting systems, half of them are run by, well, they were run by Dominion. The other one is called the Election Systems and Software Headquarters, ES&S. They're split by both of those. And so those Dominion voting machines were sold to a company called Liberty Vote, who is openly MAGA. And a lot of people have been arguing that you should not be able to sell voting systems to a third party. Apparently, I guess we can. So the fact that an openly MAGA company now has half of our voting machines does not bode well. What I'm confused about, though, is the fact that our elections that we just had last week, how everything was so blue. I mean, that just further affirms my belief in that people do not want him here. Like, everywhere turned blue. Everywhere. Even all these normally red places turned blue. And so I'm like, why wouldn't... I was expecting this one to be, like, rigged. And then I was like, well, I guess Elon's not there anymore, technically. But I thought maybe he could still be working behind the scenes with Trump, but maybe not. I guess he did threaten him pretty well, so maybe it was, like, a legitimate, like, they're not working together anymore. Maybe because these ones don't have as much consequence, they wouldn't bother voting with him. Or maybe it was a lot Elon. You know, maybe a lot of it was actually him because that's the only thing that's changed. I mean, they definitely didn't acquire those voting machines quick enough to be able to change them, I don't think. Maybe. Or maybe they're trying to throw us off the scent by making it look like we're going to win and making it not so obvious. So yeah, the timing of that one I'm still trying to figure out. I don't know if they're going to wait around till 2028 or sooner, if they might screw with our midterms, in 2026. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting that they didn't touch the most recent ones. So my best explanation is either Elon is not there anymore to help, or they wanted to make it look more legitimate. But that didn't help them, especially with the Epstein files, because now we have more ways to get to those Epstein files being released. So I don't know. Okay, so that's February. The election stuff, I just want to say it's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. So definitely like record, like take a picture of what you voted. Make sure you actually follow your ballot. Like, it leaves a little tab at the top that you can rip off. You can register it to your email. Like, double check it. Have proof that you voted one way. Because if you're willing and you're passionate about this as much as I am, and you see that your vote gets changed, have that proof. A lot of people, that's another thing that I didn't say too, that a lot of people post-election literally went online to see that even though they registered, got their mail-in ballot, they logged back in online and it said they weren't registered, or that they didn't vote, or their ballots were lost, or it got switched, and they took pictures of their ballots. Those people have been brought into some of those lawsuits. I feel like people in bluer states don't need to worry about that because they're not going to try to screw with those as much. Maybe they will, but who knows. I feel like he's trying to cover all of his bases. He's trying to do a third term. He's trying to possibly do martial law. He's doing the elections. Like, he's checking off all lists because they know that they cannot win. And if they do not win, they will go to prison. Like, Steve Bannon literally came out last week and said, if we do not seize more control, we will go to prison in 2028. And I was like, that's interesting. And somebody else made a good point about this. It's like, what do you mean? They have control of everything. What more could they want control over? And he was guessing that they meant the military. And I fully agree with this. And this is kind of the next point that I make, that this man is about to start something violent. Like, we're already seeing this happening by his like playbook of, I'm going to say that this city is unsafe. I'm going to just make this up. Portland, he's doing this with LA, he's doing this with Chicago. Like, literally, just watch. Like, Colorado, he hasn't done yet, but I bet you just give it some time, he's going to do this. And he'll say it's Aurora too, because we had like one case of a gang over there, and he's going to be like, oh, there's something that's happening over here. And so what he does is he says it's unsafe and he needs to send the National Guard in, which technically he can do for 30 days, but then they have to leave. So he sends in the National Guard. It inevitably creates a clash because people are protesting. The National Guard and even the police, the local police, and ICE, they cause issues and people fight, and they don't, for the most part, it's peaceful, but he will look for anything that they can use to be like, this city is violent. And again, this is where I think they're I don't want to say planting people, but I think they're lying about what's happening, because they had one guy in DC who they were like, this guy got bloodied and beat up, and there's so much crime here that he went out and got mugged. But if you look at who the guy is, it's one of the guys on their team that, like, literally, his name is Big Balls. Like, literally. I don't know how this man got to work on behalf of the government, but he worked in the government, and I think he's since left. But he supposedly got beat up and bloodied and mugged on the street. And there's pictures of him like this. And now, all of a sudden, DC is not a safe place to live. And it's like, he's doing this everywhere. He's going to do it more. And thereby, what he does is he justifies them being there and extends, at least he's trying to extend their stay for longer than the 30 days. This is, I think, one of his tactics to try to get military control, that he's trying to do it in baby steps. But I think it's not going to work because all of the courts are fighting back. on a lot of this, and he's losing a lot of ground. But again, I think they're going to continue to go to more drastic measures because of it. And I see this already happening. And some of you might have already picked this up as well. But like him renovating the East Wing of the White House to make a better ballroom. That's not what's happening. Like, yes, he is making a ballroom. But when you actually dig into these things, he is also building a bunker underneath that ballroom. And that has been verified by CBS. It's not just like made up. And he demolished the whole East Wing of the White House without anybody's approval. And he just did it. And they've released the budget for it as well. And I've seen videos of architects being like, that is an astronomical budget. They said the budget and for how many square feet that ballroom and the bunker could potentially be. Like, I think it's like you usually budget like a couple $100s per square feet. And they said even $1,000 would be pretty astronomical, $1,000 per square foot. But what they have budgeted is like $4,000 per square foot. What are they doing with that money? Like, they could just be laundering it and using it for something else. Or they could be using a portion of it, is what I think, to build a bunker, to build something underneath. That man is not planning on leaving. I think he's going to hole himself up there when inevitably he starts something violent. He's got somewhere safe to be. And again, these reoccurrences with fucking like astrology. This is exactly what Hitler did on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction as well. He holed himself up in his bunker underground until he basically, well, he committed suicide, but he chickened out and committed suicide when basically they were at his door because he had nothing left. And you know what's really interesting is the movie Civil War has this exact fucking plot. And I'm getting like chills thinking about this. Civil War with Kirsten Dunst. I looked into it. It was funded by a UK group. I was really thinking, oh, maybe it's somebody, here in America that has a point to make. But if you've seen that movie, like, I don't know. Originally, I was thinking somebody isn't maybe not giving us an idea, but like saying this is maybe what you might have to do. And maybe that was purely just the directors. But it's been known that the government will fund films. Like, they do that. They fund films. They put money into films that have a positive view of the government or supports an idea that they want the public to see. So I was thinking that had something to do with it. I mean, there is about, I can't remember, 25 million in that budget unaccounted for. I dug into the budget details for the film. And there's a 25 million that's just not accounted for. That's distribution. Distribution is like after the film is made, paying for it to get out to audiences. We don't know who paid for that. So maybe. But in that movie, you can't really tell. It's about America. It's about a civil war in America. But they don't expressly say like this is left and this is right. Essentially, like the president is the bad guy. And he's holed himself up in DC. He's barricaded himself inside of the White House. And the whole movie is about Kirsten Dunst, this journalist who's trying to get in to DC, but there's so many barriers. It's a pretty good movie. It ends really abruptly and oddly, but she gets through all the barriers. Like, she's got to go through the city, and the city is kind of like overrun with people within his cult that don't even realize that the Civil War is happening. And I'm just like, this sounds exactly like what's happening. And even though they don't say that the president and his followers are MAGA, they kind of lean that way because they've got guns. They're very much like racist, and somebody gets like shot for being black, I think, in the movie. So it's like very clearly like it alludes to that side probably being more right, even though they don't expressly say it, and they probably did that to just maybe not get in trouble. But at the very end of the movie, I'm deciding, like, I need to tell the end of the movie to make the point, but I don't want to spoil it. I won't spoil it. Well, no, I am going to spoil it, so skip ahead. Because at the end of the movie, skip ahead, at the end of the movie, the good guys kill the president of the United States, but they have to break into the White House, hunt him down, and kill him. And it's a weird movie, but I just remember watching that I think Trump had just been elected, and I was just like, it came out the summer before he was elected, so mid 2024. But I didn't watch it until afterwards, and I felt like it was like instructions, honestly. And I was like, who made this? And so that movie has just never left my mind. And even if somebody didn't make that on purpose, like, I think intuitively I keep coming back to it because there is a synchronicity, there is a resemblance, I should say, of what might happen. Maybe. I think Trump is going to pass out and die before any of this happens, but I think the person that succeeds him might be in that position, possibly, maybe. I don't know. It's the further out it gets, the fuzzier it gets, and the more unsure I am. But I do know that this guy is building a bunker, and I know that he's going to hole himself up there when things get violent, and that's going to be his strategy. Like, it's just so obvious. And on top of it, all of the major kind of like, what are they? They're not military people, are they? Multiple senior Trump officials are now moving to military bases for their safety. Like, what are they doing? Like, the only thing I can think of is that they're about to plan something. You're about to do a bunker. You're moving your people to safety. They have a plan. They're going to do something. Maybe it's just cause an uproar. Maybe they're being more preemptive. But because of that, I think these people are going to have like a backup of like, I'm going to stay safe and hide in my bunker. Because they know what they're doing is wrong. And they know people are going to be coming after them. Also, Palantir, Lockheed Martin, like a defense contractor, are building this ballroom. What? Come on. Like, you don't need to be intuitive for this. Like, when did that bunker start? I think, though, this bunker thing maybe could be finished in January, because the first we heard about it was October 20th, which, if you watched my October forecast, I talked about a Mercury-Mars conjunction that's going to happen 4 times. And the first time happened on October 20th. That's when we heard there was going to be a White House ballroom that's going to be fixed. And it's since been torn down. The second Mercury-Mars conjunction was actually yesterday. Let's see what happened yesterday. Why is this taking so long? Trump showed out his blinged out White House yesterday on Fox, and it blew up into a whole thing. Trump gave Laura Ingraham a televised tour of the renovations. Look at that. Like, literally, I can think of the astrology first, then go look at the news, and inevitably find that something happened. Oh, I forgot to also say that private ballroom also has private donors. So, yeah. Definitely something happened yesterday. He's showing it off now, letting people in. So the third one of the cycle is going to be November 28th and 30th. There's something about White House renovations that's going to be in the news. And the last one will be January 18th. Maybe it's done January 18th. I could be wrong there, but if that is the case and it's done on January 18th, that means they need it done by about that date for a reason. And, maybe it's that, the date is even sooner or something, and that's when they get it done. So again, February is just worrying me. I even just wonder if they're going to announce that they've got the missiles on the White House like they always say they do. Okay. Fast forwarding to the last date is July of next year. This is the one I'm concerned about, because this is when things start to get ugly. This is when we finally have all of those planets back in that kite position. We have all of our outer planets in new signs. And on our birthday, on the US's birthday, Mars is square Uranus. And so that bakes it into the chart for the entire year. Mars square Uranus, unexpected violence, unexpected hostility. It's random acts of violence that make no sense at all. I've talked in the past about what Mars Uranus has brought us. It's brought us people driving into crowds of people. It's brought us shootings. It's like, it's never good. And so the fact that that's going to define our whole year as a country, and I've talked in the past about, I think it's, so the birthday in 2026, we have Mars Uranus square, which is one of the hardest aspects too. And then the birthday in 2027, our Uranus return literally goes exact. And then in July of 2028, we have a Mars Uranus Mercury conjunction again. So literally starting next summer, we're going to have 3 years in a row of just volatility. Unfortunately, this is when that potential war could start. And I really do feel like it's coming. I'm seeing all the pieces like coming together. I'm not quite seeing the international, like I am seeing bits and pieces of how it's going to play out internationally, but I'm mostly focused on what that looks like in the US. And again, in the next podcast, I'm going to cover what that is, because the last eclipse cycle really helped us get an understanding of what that's going to look like internally. And I think it actually has a lot to do with us gerrymandering a lot of our states. And the interesting thing about July 2026 is that it's also that bucket formation. Like the kite one is the first one that I've been talking about, but the bucket one is supposed to be a really good harmonious thing. And the really old French astrologer, he predicted that it was going to be the start of something new, of something for the people. He literally even said, okay, I'm getting chills right now. I think it's going to be good, even though it starts out rough. He basically said, like, it's going to be a time when, literally, he said the working class between, like, the rich and the poor is going to get a lot smaller. And the astrology does say that on the other side of the years of volatility. It's really showing us that we are not ever going back to pre-COVID of like what life looked like in that way. Like, I think we are at the end of this really going to squash like the oligarchy system. We're going to squash like the fact that the rich have so much power. Like, at least I hope so. And like even the way that we take care of people in healthcare, it's going to look so completely different than what it does right now or even before. And I think it all has to do with what happens in this 3-year period. Or, well, yeah, 2026 through 27 and then all of 28. And then there's still a little bit of time after that we've got to clean things up. And I, again, in the last podcast said I don't really feel like this gets cleaned up until 2030, 2031. But on the other side, it looks beautiful. But we're approaching what I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, is going to be those couple years of volatility. So I don't know. If you're thinking about moving, this might be the time to just temporarily leave. Me and my husband literally last weekend went through our whole entire garage and got rid of a ton of stuff and are selling a bunch of stuff so that if we have to leave quickly, we can. But yeah, I was worried that bucket, similar to the kite, was just going to help support the bad guys doing their bad guy things. But I don't know. I just got chills now of like, you know, maybe what it is they try to start something and the people just snap. I think the people snap next summer. And because of that, like maybe it's the start of a revolution, and the revolution takes a while. It's a few years of like pushback stress. Again, we've got Saturn going into Aries. Neptune in Aries is the idealization of the warrior, but Saturn in Aries is like, okay, we got to show up and we got to do it and we got to be disciplined about it and we got to stick with it. But like, I heard someone describe it as like Nepal energy. Like, that's what we're heading into for the next couple of years. It's like revolutionary, no more putting up with their bullshit. we're taking this over. I don't think we'll be as fast as Nepal because we are not as small as Nepal. And if you don't know what happened in Nepal, it's so fucking cool. Like, basically, the government was getting more and more oppressive. They were taking things away from people. There's a lot that goes into it. But finally, the last straw was that they tried to ban social media. And Gen Z over there just had enough. And they, overnight, threw over their government. They went and they specifically targeted, like, just buildings that were in relation to the government and the government officials, set them on fire, and, like, just full on went nuts. And it caused the people in charge to step down. And then literally the next day, they were all out on the streets cleaning up. Like, it was so precious. They were cleaning up. Like, it makes me emotional. They were cleaning up. There was like a tourist bus coming through, and they were like waving at the tourists, and they were like, "Hi, welcome to Nepal." And, like, things were on fire, but they were still, like, so sweet. And then what happened was they didn't have, like, they had nobody to run the government. And so what they did is they all got on Discord, and they literally voted for their next leader on Discord. I shit you not. And it was this woman that apparently was pretty well known in the community. And she's like, literally within 48 hours, they overthrew the government, cleaned up, and they've got a new leader that's even better. Just like, that's what we need, people. I think our biggest challenge with the U.S. in the upcoming years, I think this would go a lot faster if there wasn't so much misinformation floating around that was purposely used to divide us in the first place. If we weren't so big, it's harder to get organized. And then if people weren't so goddamn complacent. Like, people are so willing to sit back and just allow this to happen. I keep being like, when are people going to wake up? When are people going to finally start getting pissed? And so many people still, even in my family, are just like, la-di-da. Just pretending like nothing is happening. And it just makes me mad. Come next summer, though, I think people are going to have to start paying attention because we're going to have that Nepal energy. It's going to be Saturn in Aries, Neptune in Aries. I don't know what happens in June or July. I'll keep trying to tune into that. Something's got to incite this incident to make it more volatile. All I know is that it's going to be the 250th year celebration of America. So I wonder if something around that they're going to do something. Meaning the administration, they're going to do something. I mean, if I'm right about Trump passing away as soon as next year, it could be that somebody else is taking over and running the country and not doing a good job, and people have had enough sort of energy. But I'll keep tuning into that, and I'll always end each podcast with some sort of timeline. But yeah, in the next one, I'm going to cover a lot of things. I want to cover the bad guys that I really think we should be paying attention to. The long game that I'm seeing play out, JD Vance, Erica Kirk, Turning Point USA, there's a lot happening there. And I think Kirk himself, some days I wonder if he's actually dead. Some days I wonder if he actually was, or if he is. It's hard. It's hard to know. I watched the video, unfortunately. It looks pretty real, but squibs exist. I don't trust this government, so they've got me thinking conspiracy theories all the time. And it's a lot Erica Kirk's reaction to this whole thing that's got me like, girl. And then if you like know anything about her, she was literally kicked out of Romania for trying to start a political cult. Like, she's done this before. She's a professional. And then they've got her and Vance together now. I think they're going to use the Turning Point base. And a lot of, I'm just jumping ahead at this point, but the thing is that the Charlie Kirk stuff happened on the eclipse. So that's pretty significant. Even though he was not a very significant person, like politically, he was just a podcaster. And then the way that they've been using that to fuel things, and the fact that I had a dream, and I had a dream with a date in it, and the dream, the date that I dreamt about was his passing, and that dream, which I've shared in the Psychic Development Society, really said that that was the 9/11 moment. And so I keep thinking about that, and I'm like, what about Charlie Kirk? And I'm getting chills again. Yeah, I'm right there for something like that. The Charlie Kirk moment hasn't fully played out yet. There's something more to this. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm radiating chills. There's I know this sounds nuts. I'm going to throw it out there. I wonder if he's going to come back. Because there's been a lot of like murmuring of like, oh, we're going to resurrect him from the dead. We're going to resurrect him from the dead. And like literally the day that they had his memorial service, the astrology was literally about like resurrecting someone, sacrificial lamb, the coffin, like just not to get into it now, but there's like a decan in Virgo that he died on and had his memorial service on, and it's literally in the past been associated with like sacrificial lamb and bringing something back to life. And at first I was like, oh, well, they're maybe, that's maybe an allegory for trying to bring back Turning Point in the ultra right wing. And then I'm like, what if it's more literal than that? Like, what if he didn't die and it was all fake? And because you can fake that, and they have done that before, that's not outside of the government's realm of possibility. Again, I really don't know how I feel about this one. Sometimes I'm like, no, Lauren, he definitely died. And then the other days I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Because it was really interesting that there was a private jet that flew out from the local airport almost immediately after he died. And we saw his hands when Erica Kirk was like caressing and kissing them, and they look like fucking mannequins. Like, we never saw his face. So part of me wonders if there's going to be this like, he came back from the dead, Jesus brought him back from the dead, and like, it sounds ridiculous, and that's why I don't believe it. But it's like, they might try anything, like, honestly. And the only other reason why I'm like thinking about this too is that there's an astrological, I think it was the World Astrology Report guy. He literally talked about, and like a lot of the alien community talks about, what is it? The blue something. Essentially that the government one day is going to make it look like Jesus has come back, but it's actually going to be aliens, or I can't remember exactly what it is. Or it's just that they're going to have such advanced technology that they can make it look like Jesus came back, and the point of this is to like control people, and I don't know. It always sounded a little hoaxy for me. But I was hearing about that. I was also hearing from the World of Astrology Report guy that something's going to happen next February that makes it look like aliens are coming back. And I was like, wait, maybe it's not aliens. Maybe it's this. Because of all the other occurrences that are happening. It's like, what if they brought him back and made him like this big, like, oh, I don't know. That one seems one of my more far out there ideas. It's just something I've picked up on. I don't know if it's 100% psychic. Too much bias on that one. But yeah, I'll definitely go over those eclipses, what happened in September, so therefore I can add to a little bit more of what I think is going to happen in February. But there's also some good news, like Curtis Yarvin fleeing. He thinks that this administration is failing so bad, and he's the one that kind of was like the architect behind what they're doing. He thinks that they're failing so bad that he's like ready to jump ship, and I'm like, cool, yeah. But this isn't going to end easy. This is not just going to be like he dies and we elect a new president. It's not going to be that easy. We are heading into a couple years of war, in my opinion. And again, my hope is to give you this information so you can prepare and not be so scared or terrified when it does happen, and make you feel like, hey, at least somebody on the other side is trying to forewarn and help you so that you can manage your emotions, manage your stress to get through it and make informed decisions. So yeah, friends, that is the Trump podcast that I've been wanting to get to since forever. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, just know that you can go back and listen to a lot of my other predictions. Just know that they're in the past at this point, so some of them might have changed. Especially my dream about the 9/11 and the synchronicity with Charlie Kirk. I feel like even though I dreamt that that was at an airport, I wanted to update everybody that I actually don't think it has to do with the transportation industry. I've since done more dreams and realized that airports and air travel actually have a different symbolism for me. I just didn't know what it was at that time. Essentially, I think it's symbolic for communication, like air. I think of the element air. I think of like internet. And so I actually wonder if there's going to be just this massive like cybersecurity attack that just like devastates a lot of people. That's something I want to talk about in the next podcast. But we'll see how much of it I'm right on. And again, remember, I can definitely be wrong. I have been wrong about some of my past stuff. It happens. Curious what you all think as you've listened to this. Like, let me know where you agree, where you don't agree, what you've picked up. And again, if you have predictions, join us over on the Psychic Development Society. Log those predictions, because I will tell you, so many of us, for some reason, are having dreams on the same nights about the same things. And I'm so thankful that I created that, because like there was one night I had a dream about JD Vance. And you can go read this now. I'll cover this in the next one. And I had a dream about 3 moons. And I was like, that's weird. I don't know what this means. And then one of the other members in the society dreamt about JD Vance and a triple moon symbol. And I was like, what? And this has happened more than once. A lot of us are having dreams on the same night as each other, and we wouldn't have known had we not have put it out there. And so it makes me kind of wonder if a lot of us are receiving the same information at the same time, but because we don't talk about it, we don't even realize. So definitely come in, log your dreams, log your predictions. Everyone is welcome, even if you just want to come in to read. And over there in the society, you can also get access to all of my courses. You can also book private sessions with me. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me here on the podcast as well, so you can see when those videos go live. Usually I put up the podcast on the Spotify version first, and then I wait until like a week or two later to actually put it up on YouTube, because I've got other YouTube videos. So make sure you're subscribed on anywhere that you listen to podcasts, the Practical Psychic Podcast, so that you can hear that. And again, make sure you're following me on my newsletter, so that when I do inevitably meet up with Anna and we start talking a little bit more, you can see where we're going to be chatting about that. All right, everyone, please follow the podcast, rate it for me if you will, leave me some comments. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm so excited to come back and keep talking more with you all. Alrighty, bye.